Hello and welcome. I'm Kent, and this is almost a live turning of a wood bowl. Yeah, I know. All right, so here's what happened. Let me explain the whole story briefly. I sent an email out yesterday afternoon telling everybody I'm going to do a live turning on YouTube, and I thought maybe after that I should check to make sure how this is all set up on YouTube. I've done live turnings on Facebook, no problem. And as it turns out, YouTube has tightened their parameters for who can broadcast live. Apparently, with everything going on in the world right now, everyone wants to produce or put on live videos, and it must be causing problems on their system. So I need to have more subscribers in order to do a live feed, which is a little bit disappointing. But now, not to disappoint you, I've decided I'm going to do the next best thing to a live turning. I'm going to actually turn this entire bowl, this piece of wood, into a bowl with 0 cuts, all in real time, no fast forward, nothing. And I'm going to walk you through the entire process, okay? And if it turns out well, I'm going to make this bowl available for one of you guys to win, if you'd like. But first off, I need more subscribers. So if you're somehow here watching this and you've seen some of my other videos, or maybe you haven't seen those yet, but you're here and you're checking this out and you're not a subscriber, you need to hit that little button right now, subscribe. So take care of that, and I'm going to get started. So what I've got here is a piece of honey locust. I'm going to bring the camera in. I'll be doing this frequently, so kind of just bear with me. This is all part of not having cuts. So I'm going to bring this in so you can see a little better. This is honey locust, and it's about 3.5 years old, and I know I've got some checking going on here on the ends. I can see some checking going on here, and I've got a wormhole bored through the bark, which that's unusual, so I'm guessing there's going to be a hole there. And the pith is cracked right here. So I want to cut that out so I don't have to turn that on the lathe. So what I'm going to do is, I can also see that there's a couple, the ends aren't square, so I'm going to square those up, which will reduce the height of this, and I should be able to get that shortened. So before I do that, always dust protection. Protects against coronavirus, but it's more important to conduct or protect against dust as well. Maybe it's not as immediate as the coronavirus, but it's just as dangerous, and over time it'll do lots of harm. So protect those lungs. Okay, well, the wood looks like it's in good shape for being as old as it is. It's been sealed, the ends were sealed, and it's been sitting out. It's got some pretty pattern in it. It does have some worm holes. I'm looking at this when I cut the end grain. You can see that up in the sapwood here. You got some little, I don't know if you can see that. You see the lighter areas? That's been packed in by the wormholes. So I think we're going to have a nice looking piece here. All right, I'm going to move over to the lathe now. this, and I'm going to use, oh, actually, you know what? Back up. Let's come back over here. I'm going to cut this into a blank first. Let me get these pieces out of the way. And the way I do that is I use these circle templates. So I'm looking at about a 10-inch diameter here. I want to center this above the pith as close as possible, just so that the bottom of it's centered and aligned. So I'm looking at where that's going to be. And thinking it's looking good there. So I just basically pin that in place so it stays there, and I use the cardboard as a rough guide for turning this circle. Okay, all right, now we're ready to move over to the lathe. Okay. So to attach this to the lathe, it is a larger piece. It's a little bit heavier wood. I'm going to use a faceplate. Sometimes I'll go end to end. And when I use a faceplate, I want to make sure that I'm good and centered. Boy, that's beautiful grain going on there. I'm not going to use a tailstock right now, so we'll get this out of the way. And I'm going to measure that. And the way I measure it is just with a simple tape measure. But I try to take a couple different measurements so that I'm right on, or I've got a rough idea where that center line is. So first measurement, I just go across the piece. It's saying about 10.5. So I'm going to mark that at 5 1/4. Check against that at 90 degrees. It's saying about 10 3/4, so about 5 3/8. Come across this at about 45-degree angle. It's 10.5. Again, 5 1/4. And then against that perpendicular 10 3/4 is going to be 5 3/8. So that gives me a really good idea where that center is sitting. So now I will eyeball that. Let me bring you guys closer so you can see. My impact driver and screws. These are not drywall screws, guys. Remember this whenever you're doing face plates. Absolutely no drywall screws. The way I understand it is you don't want any hardened steel screws. You want soft steel. So hardened steel screws will break. And you also, another big deal, if you've seen this on my article about faceplates, you want that screw to fit inside that shaft or that hole pretty snugly. You don't want a skinny screw into a big hole because it gives it room to wiggle. And that'll eventually, at worst, or at the best case scenario, it'll move around on you, which you don't want. Worst case, it'll break it off. Now, another thing I do is I start one screw and I make sure I'll go to the opposite side with the second screw and make sure that I'm centered. I'm looking straight down that hole in that center mark that I made. All right, then I can tighten up and put all the screws in place. And yeah, I do like using all the screws. I know it's going to be on there, it's not going anywhere. So, what are you guys doing right now in your quarantined environments? How many of you guys are out turning or have access to a lathe so you can turn? Leave me a comment below. I'd love to know. And what type of tree species have you been turning? Again, this is honey locust. This came from Illinois. This is from my parents' yard. And it's, like I said, it's 3.5 years old, so I know it's going to be very, very hard. I've recently turned some of this that has some moisture in it still, so it will potentially have some movement in it, but it's going to have very little movement. It's going to be pretty hard to turn initially, so I've got to use really sharp tools. All right. And I'm going to be taking this bark off first. So that's going to take a little bit of energy to get through that bark. Trying to reset this as we go here. Bring this up. There we go. Yeah, I talk to myself a little bit while I turn. Don't we all? Maybe not. Make sure I'm on center. Oh, there's one of our little worm buddies. Whoa, did you see that? Did he just jump back into that hole? I haven't seen that. Well, he's going to go for a ride here in a second. All right. I am going to turn off this bark initially. I always start at the lowest speed of the lathe to make sure we've got stability. And I think our little guy just shot out right there. Maybe not. Some of the loose debris is shooting out. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm bringing the speed up gradually until I start feeling a little bit of instability on the lathe. Got a little bit of a wobble going on there. It's not a real bad vibration, just a little bit of a wobble. All right, so now I'm going to make push cuts from the center out. I'm starting at the corner. Hold on a second. You can see that bark coming off there, and that's why you want to stand out of the line of fire. You don't want to stand here if you don't have to. All right, and I've got that corner off, so now I can move the tool rest in at a little bit closer angle. Nice. And we'll just keep moving. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? It's going to be a little bit safer. That bark is pretty... you don't need it. If you can prevent it from flying off, that's not a bad thing to be doing. So I'm going to see if I can pry some of that off. Yeah. It's better than sending it flying. There's definitely some insect activity under the bark here. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this. I think it's going to be a traditional bowl. I might try to do a thin bowl because I know this material is not moving a lot. It may move a bit. If I make it super thin, it'll probably get warped and a little bit funky looking. But if I make it, 1/4 inch or somewhere in that vicinity, it might turn out to be a really nice, elegant bowl. So we'll just have to see once I get this shape down. Wow, that debris from the wormholes is like smoke coming out of there. I'm going to go back to my respirator. Yeah, those worms can really pack that into those holes. All right, so you're going to have to bear with me. I'm going to be under the respirator here for a few minutes, and then we'll get this rounded off and see what it looks like.
Okay, so I know that this is going to become flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start that process right here, because that's going to give me something to go on, is where the tenon is going to be attached. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten that out, then I'll continue rounding. All right, so we're getting a little bit of a flat surface there. I'm going to go continue rounding this, and hopefully we'll get through a bunch of these wormholes, because those guys are going to be a little bit of a booger if we don't. We can always work with them and fix them. Okay, so the bull blank is more symmetrical here, so I'm going to bring the speed up a bit. It'll make this cut a little bit easier and smoother, but this is really hard wood. I'm going to need to sharpen my bull gouge here shortly. I'm going to fire up the air compressor while we're doing this so that I can blow the dust off. I'm going to come around here and finish this, or fix this rim, straighten it up. When I'm doing that, I'm going to also bring the camera over here so you can see, but I'm also bringing the controls for the lathe around too. If you have that ability, you want to keep the controls with you on the side that you're turning. So I'm going to be on the left side of the lathe here while I'm getting this squared away here. Okay, so we got some issues to deal with. We got a little bit of cracking here at the pith on one side. We're going to have wormholes in this, I think, no matter what. And we've got a wormhole right about where the tenon is going to go. So I'm going to reduce this section a bit more and shape the tenon, and we'll go from there and see how we're looking. I'll bring this down so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm going to remove probably at least another 1/4 inch from the bottom, and then we'll go ahead and shape the tenon. And once the tenon's shaped, basically when you're designing a bowl, you've got 3 different points at which the design is going to be dictated from. First, obviously the overall shape of the bowl blank, but you're going to have the tenon. Once you've made your tenon, if you do a mortise, that's fine. Once you've done your mortise, and then you decide what your rim is going to be, where it will be located, how high up, and what the shape of it's going to be. Essentially, then you have to connect the base to the rim, and that's your shape of the bowl. There's not much more you can do at that point. So you want to start thinking about what you want the foot to look like and what the rim looks like, and then you're going to merge the two. Let me go ahead and trim this down a bit. Tell you what, let me blow some dust off. It's amazing how much dust there was. Make sure. Okay. Also, this is really symmetrical now, so I can get this speed up. I don't want to go more than about 1,000 RPMs. I definitely don't want to create vibration in the lathe. It's a pretty good speed right there. All right, a couple things going on here. I can feel heat building up while I'm holding the tool down here, a couple inches from the tip, and that basically means that these have been heated dramatically. That's because the wood's really hard. So let's go over here, and I'm going to sharpen these. Go ahead and sharpen both of them. And again, I wear my respirator with this. It's something that I try to get everybody to do. Just a second. The metal dust coming from that is definitely not healthy. So you want to keep your respirator on while you're sharpening. And by the way, if this is interesting to you as far as sharpening or learning to sharpen, I have a tool sharpening for wood bowl turning course that's going to be coming out hopefully in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. Okay, yeah, and in that course, I'm going to teach every aspect of sharpening, every tool that you need to use for turning wood bowls, from bowl gouges to scrapers, even carbide tools. I'll show you how to sharpen those as well. We're going to cover all of it, all the safety, all the aspects, all the equipment you need, how to set it up, the whole 9 yards. So that's something, if you're having trouble with sharpening, or if it's something you're not quite sure about, it's probably as important as any other tool technique or any other techniques while turning, because if you don't have sharp tools, you're not going to have much success turning bowls. Okay, let me grab my dividers. Now what I'm doing is I've used pointed dividers to mark the tenon. You might have seen me do this in other videos, and What's really important with this is the right side of this divider never touches the wood, because if it does, it's going to kick back and flip over. You don't want that. So what I'm doing is I'm marking the left side only, and the right side I'm making the line so it's right underneath the right side. And this is the width of my 4-jaw chuck. So that's going to be the base of the tenon. So now we can continue turning. What I'm going to turn here is the tenon cylinder. I'm not going to shape the full tenon dovetail yet, but the tenon cylinder and then the shoulder that'll go right above the tenon. Okay, so basically we've defined where the tenon's going to be and where the shoulder's going to be. From there, from the base of this shoulder, I'm going to connect that to the rim with a nice flowing curve. Right now we have a bottom of a bowl and a side of a bowl. Now you could do that, but that's one heck of a hard turn to turn inside to get the bottom of that corner inside. Plus, I think a more fluid flowing bowl is much more elegant, and that's what we're going to shoot for. So I'm going to keep removing material out here and shape the side of the bowl. Let me bring you around here so you can see a little bit better what's going on. And I'm going to lower this. All right. So again, tell me what you guys have been up to. What kind of wood you're turning, and how many bowls have you made since you've been in isolation? I've made my share. I've probably about 10. Let me show you something real quick. I've been playing around too. There was a laurel oak tree around the corner that came down, and I've been making a couple little hollow forms too, which have been a lot of fun to do. It's basically a very closed rim bowl. Okay, so I'm going to turn this and get this shaped. This, by the way, this is a 3/8 bull gouge, and I've got the nose pointing in the direction of the cut. Okay, so I'm going from the base of the bowl outward with the nose pointing that way. Did you hear that chatter at the very end? What was happening there is I was overextended too far on the tool rest, so I didn't have as much support over here with the tool rest, and it was getting a little bit of vibration going on there. See, now I've got a big old wormhole right here that I'm just barely missing the side of it. It doesn't bother me a whole bunch. These are going to go through the sidewall, and there's another one going through the sidewall. It's kind of a fun feature, actually. Okay, so now what I'm doing when I'm cutting down here, the tendency is for your eyeball to want to be here, but in reality, I'm watching this top edge across the top of this because I can see the curve better here than I can down at the bottom at the tool rest. you what, let me see if I can get you over the top here so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Make sure there's not too much dust on my lens. My goodness, I can't believe how much dust is coming off of this. And it's all from those wormholes. Okay, so up until now, I've been using push cuts this whole time. In here, where the shoulder is meeting the base of the bowl, I want to make this a little bit more defined, but it's not so simple to start a push cut back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a scraping cut and a pull cut that's going to pull and shape that, and then I can pick up the push cut on the outside. Okay, overall I like the shape of this. That big wide wormhole is just barely there. There's some tool marks on this. It's a little bit rough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and I'm going to use a shear scrape. Now a shear scrape is a totally different presentation of the bowl gouge. I'm going to have the base of the, I don't know if you can see that, the base of the bowl gouge is going to be in my hip. It's basically going to be right here on my side. The bowl gouge is pointing straight up, and it's going to be, the flute is closed up against the wood, except it's tilted out just a little bit. So this bottom edge is going to be doing the scraping. It's almost like it's almost like shaving. And I'm going to use that to refine this shape and smooth the surface both at the same time. And then I'm going to come up here and clean up this upper rim, and then we'll finish the tenon. See, a good shear scrape is going to produce these really fine shavings. Now, with the tool rest, you can only really shear scrape a little area. Like I was working this area, I'm going to move the tool rest so I have more of a perpendicular support. Now I'm going to work this area right here. Another important thing about the shear scrape is because it's such a subtle shave, you can go against the supported grain. So you can go this way, or you can come back with the supported grain. And it works just as fine, and it doesn't tear up the surface. Okay, now I'm going to check and see where make sure there's not too much dust down here. I'm going to see where this rim is, and the rim's not perfectly straight, so I'm going to very carefully make a push cut on this side of the rim over here and into the rim, but just very delicately, so the bottom of the bowl gouge is the only edge that's going to catch this, or cut it rather, not catch. Catch is a bad wood turning term. We don't use that one. Right now, I just want to make that rim even. Okay, and it seems really even. The exterior feels real nice. I'm liking that. We've got a little bit of a crack issue to deal with here on this pith. I'm going to take the rim down a bit, because I know that's going to continue, and I can see there's another vein starting here, so I can get past that one at least. And there's a little bit of separation here in the grain, which is it's not horrible. We can do a couple things to fix that. Okay, I'm going to bring it down a bit more. You can still, I don't know if you can see that, there's still a little bit of an edge there. And I've got a wormhole that's going to be right up on the rim here. That's not too bad, I guess. Okay. And I got a little chip out there, so let's give it a little bit more. Okay, that's going to work. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape the tenon. We need to make sure that dovetail matches the dovetail of the four-jaw chuck. If you look over here, I'm going to bring the light down so you can see. What's happening is right now I just have a cylinder and two cylinders, one for the shoulder and one for the tenon. This tenon cylinder needs two things to happen before we can flip this over. First of all, I need to put a dovetail, so this outside tapers inward, so it'll make the chuck can lock onto it. And I'm going to use the spindle detail gouge, which I'm also going to use for the dovetail. I'm going to use that to make a little register mark in the bottom of the bowl. Okay. Fantastic. Now I actually even undercut this just a little bit so that it will, what we want is the top of the chuck has to sit perfectly flush with this shoulder. All right, so I'm going to back the camera up and we're going to go take the faceplate off and get a chuck out, and we'll flip this around. Reposition you guys so you can see what's going on. All right. Still got some bark hanging on there. Let me put this here. can see how much I took that rim down to avoid this crack on the side. My battery wants to quit. You got one more, buddy. You can do it. I think I can. I think I can. One more. There we go. Whew, that was close. Okay, so the 4-jaw chuck is it's a 4-inch. It's actually not 4 inches. It's however many millimeters. 4 inches is roughly. I never remember that one. Maybe you guys in England or Australia or basically anywhere other than the United States, maybe you can tell me how many millimeters this is. Now I'm going to bring the camera around so you can see that. I want you to see what just happened. Here's the most important part of doing a tenon is you want that to sit flush every single time. Hold on. So I'm going to show you the side of the bowl here. Here's a side view. And let me pop this off so you can see it again. So the jaws, two things have to happen. You want the shoulder of the bowl to seat properly on top of the chuck, and you want the jaws not to close all the way down. I have a whole video on this, and I have a big article on it, so go check those out. If you haven't been to my website yet, it's turningwoodbowl.com. You definitely need to check it out if you're interested even remotely in turning wood bowls. Okay, so now we're all set up to start taking out the center of the bowl. And what I like to do now when I'm turning in this particular point of the turning is I'm going to define what the shape of the rim is going to be. I'm going to bring the lights around here so you can get a better look. And I like to work from the outside of the bowl inward. So I'm thinking this is going to be a relatively elegant, kind of simple, thin, contemporary looking bowl. So to do that, what I'm going to either do is I'm either going to leave this rim flat, like horizontal across, or I'm going to tip it in a little bit, almost at a 90-degree angle to the sidewall, and I think that's the route I'm going to go. So I'm going to make the pass for the top of the rim, and then I'm going to clear all the material out of here, this extra material, and then we'll start working the side of the bowl down. Let's check it out. Okay, I don't know if you can see that angle or not. I'm going to show you that angle. It's just a slightly inward angle. So if something were to sit on the rim, it would fall into the bowl. And that's not the real reason for it. It's just aesthetically, that's kind of a pleasing appearance. So I'm going to remove this material on the face of it, and then we'll start working the side walls of the bowl. Okay, so I know I do have an issue here with the cracking going on over here in that split. And what I want to do is I want to slow that process. So there's a little trick that I like to do, and I'll show you how that works. Let's do this right now so we can see it. You can see this crack right here. Let me get the exposure down just a bit. Okay, you can see the crack coming from the pith line, and there's like a little separation here as well. So here's the trick that I use. The trick is to take some spray lacquer. Doesn't have to be fancy spray lacquer. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to do this with the camera there. I don't want to get it right in the camera, but I'm just going to spray that area. You can see that I sprayed the area around those cracks. Now, why would I do that? Well, the purpose for that is to basically create a seal on the wood so that the CA, the glue that I'm going to use to support that crack, doesn't stain all over that. It will create a little bit of a stain, but it won't be horrible. Now, what I'm looking for on the side of the lathe here, or on the rails, is some really fine sawdust or powder from the turning. And you can see how small that crack is. It's barely taking any dust in that crack, and that's fine. The lacquer is already dry, so what I'm going to do is very carefully put some super thin CA in here. And I'm going to hit this crack down here. All right, those are touched. Now I'm going to take a little sawdust, and I'm going to just wipe that off so it's down in there and it doesn't drip all over the side of the bowl. And that's a quick little tip. When I come back and sand, I will be able to sand that lacquer away, and it will hopefully remove any stains that occurred from the glue. Okay. So I'm coming back around here, and I'm going to start doing the thickness of the bowl. This is the same technique that I use for doing a live edge bowl, because the exterior wings of the bowl and the thickness of the wall is really critical. So instead of coring from the middle out, I start from the outside and work my way in. And it works a lot better. You have a lot more control. And you can make, if you wanted to, you can make a really thin wall and it will be supported. The trick is you work from the top down and you don't go backwards. Because as you work down, that top layer that's going to be a thin wall up here is going to be, it's going to be fragile and it'll vibrate. And we don't want that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear a path, like a little, I call it like a ditch. I'm going to dig a ditch right here. And then I'm going to come in with my smaller bowl gouge and I'm going to start defining that outside wall. That's really getting my camera, isn't it? All right, so what happened there was I took the bowl gouge and I had the angle at an angle this way and it kicked back out. So what I want to do is I want to keep that at a 90-degree angle and push straight in. It's amazing how much that's heating up the bowl gouge as it goes. I'm going to brush these off. Okay. All right, and we can see that crack over here. I'm probably going to keep about that wall thickness, and I kind of want to bring the rim, drop it down just a little bit more. So I'm going to refine that real quick. I got a little chip out right here too. That'll help take care of that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And that's about the thickness I'm going to leave it. So now I'm going to start working down the side wall. And as I go, I'm going to be taking the middle out. This middle mass is going to provide stability on this outside wall. And as I remove that middle mass, this higher wall is going to have less stability and is going to vibrate more. So I don't want to come back up and do any more work on these outside walls once this has been removed. incredible how hard this wood is. We got one of our wormholes making a nice presence there. It's incredible how hard that is. Okay, I'm going to bring this in a little bit better for you. There's a bunch of dust flying around. I want to make sure I'm not making a horrible image there. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing with this ditch concept. I keep working the center down, and now I'm working the side down. It's getting pretty thick right here. So the next spot I'm going to work is going to start right here and then downward. Bring the light in here a little bit. There we go. This is where you want to stop frequently and use your fingers as calipers. I can feel that it's even here and it gets a little bit thicker there. So I need to make a little bit of pass from here down. All right, now I can see the curve over here. I'm liking that shape. And yeah, it's following the outside curve really nicely. Okay, so now I'm going to continue lowering the interior. So when I pick up a cut here, you can see the line there where I need to be cutting. That needs to be lower over here. This is the thickness I want. What I'm doing is I'm going to rub the heel first. So that way I don't accidentally just start cutting into this. And then I'm going to lift the handle and engage the bevel and then start the cut. I'm putting down pressure on the tool rest. All right, I need to take a quick break and sharpen some tools. That shape works perfectly. Bring you guys over with me. Really, sharpening is such a big deal. Without sharp tools, you pretty much can't accomplish much. You can see that I don't know if you noticed, but I was struggling with those last few cuts because these tools are not sharp anymore. We've got a storm going on outside, and I've got an exterior line that is
keeps flipping my breaker. So you are really live with me here, because I would have totally edited that right out. It's like being live, but it's not. And trust me, once I can do live videos, I'm going to do some more for you guys. So the question is, does anybody really want this bowl? Would somebody like to win this bowl? So there's going to be some criteria to enter to win this bowl. And I will explain that. Number one, you need to subscribe to this channel. Number two, I need you to leave a comment below this video. It doesn't matter what it is. Tell me what you were doing today. Tell me what you've been doing since you've been quarantined. Tell me what the last bowl is you turned. Whatever you'd like. Just leave a comment below. If you got a question about turning, any kind of question, I'll be happy to answer it. And then I need you to go watch one of my other videos on this channel. And hit the like button on at least one of the other videos on my channel. And if you do all those things, you'll be registered to potentially win this bowl. I think I'm going to wait until, I think it's July 1st. I'm going to announce who the winner is. Let me bring this back over. And I will send this bowl to you. Now, we're going to finish shaping this bowl today. I'm not going to do all of the finish work as far as the sanding and I'm going to use tried and true linseed and beeswax, linseed oil and beeswax on this. And I'm not going to do all that on camera because it's going to take forever, but I'm going to do all that. I'm actually doing a new video soon to show how the tenon is turned off of a bowl like this. And I think I'll actually use this bowl as a demonstration for that video. So by the time this gets shipped out to whoever wins it on July 1st, you'll be able to see this video and the other video, which will be turning the tenon off of this. Okay, I'm going to use my curved tool rest. These are robust tool rests, and I'll tell you what, these are the best. I will put a link on these in the description. These are just fantastic tool rests to use for a whole bunch of different reasons. I just love the natural curve of it, but this is actually a hardened steel edge, so it's like almost impossible to put a ding or a nick in it. So you have a continuously smooth flow around here. There's nothing interrupting the tool, which makes nice smooth cuts. All right, so I'm feeling that it's getting a little bit thick right there, which it should be. Yeah, so I'm going to go pick that up and keep this going to the center. Let's see what we got here. Check that out. I've got a little bit of an edge right there. So you can probably see that where it's a little bit higher. It's a little trick for that. What I don't want to do is I don't want to start a cut up here and then go all the way to the bottom and then make the bottom super thin. I really just want to get this high spot knocked down. So a way to do that is take a pencil, make a mark on that high spot. Now the only thing I'm going to do, this is a little bit dangerous cut if you're just learning how to use the bowl gouge, because I'm going to have it completely opened upright, and I'm going to use that open edge just to shave off that high spot. And then I rotate the tool so it comes out of the cut.
because I don't want to continue digging down into that surface. Now there's a little bit of tool mark there, but that'll sand out. All right, guys, we've got ourselves a bowl. And there's actually some pretty cool character in it with the wormholes. All right, let me reposition the camera here. Wow, it's got dusty in here. Okay, so that's it. This is the bowl. Let me bring the light up so you can see. Let me just make sure I've got everything set up here. Okay, so, whew. I hope that was fun for you. And I hope you picked up some tips or some ideas on how to possibly make your bowl turning a little bit more efficient or a little bit easier, or I don't know. Hopefully you learned something from it or had just fun watching. So leave me a comment. Now, this is the thing. If you want this bowl, now it's not done. Now, the reason this isn't done, I've got a tenon on here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish sanding this. I'm going to put tried and true linseed oil and beeswax, which is this really nice finish. I've got an article about it. It's called if you go Google my favorite food safe wood bowl finish, you'll find it. And the application for this is you put a really thin coat on and you let it sit for 1 hour, and then you wipe that coat off, and then you let it sit for 24 hours, and after 24 hours you can burnish it. Well, you can hand rub it and burnish it, and it works okay, but what I like to do is I like to put it back on the chuck and turn it, and not fast, but turn it, and I burnish it with steel wool, and it just puts a beautiful luster on the wood finish, and it makes it wonderful. And at that point, then I reverse the bowl and I remove the tenon. And like I said, I'm going to make a separate video on removing the tenon, which will also be on this channel. It's going to be down the road a little ways, but you'll get a chance to see it. So July 1st, this bowl is going to be given away to whoever follows, whoever enters and wants to win. Here's the criteria. You need to subscribe to my channel first. So click I think it's down here, click the little subscribe button. Then leave a comment on this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know you want to win this bowl. And go to my other videos on this channel and hit the like button on the ones you like, okay? Those are the 3 things you need to do. I'm going to announce the winner in one of my videos coming out on July 1st. I'm going to announce the winner, and then we'll private message or something, and I'll get your address, and I'm going to send you this bowl, and I'll probably throw in something else for you too if you're interested. So, all right, if you haven't already subscribed, do it, and thanks for joining me. And like I said, as soon as YouTube will let me, I'm really going to do a live turning for you guys. But for right now, this will have to be as close as we can get to live. All right, thanks guys. Take care.